Hi, hello everyone. I am going to introduce my new course on the essence of technology, as Heidegger sees it, the realm of techniques, which, if you are interested in the seminars, begin this Saturday. So I'm going to go over the technical details of the course. I'm going to show you what the course looks like on the inside. And I will then also respond to some questions that people have sent me via email regarding the course. And if you have any questions at all, perhaps you could just let me know. And in the chat, that is, so I can respond to them. And I'll also briefly read a bit of from the Frage nach der Technik, the question concerning technology, just so you get a sense for what the seminars might be like. So straight away, I'll just say this. The seminars are over Zoom. I lead the seminars. There's no TA, no teaching assistant. I'm my own teaching assistant. You will come in having read the text and having listened to the pre-recorded lecture, which looks, for example, like this right here. So the first lecture is 1 hour and 16 minutes long. After you've done the reading, that's when you listen to the lecture. Really, only after you've done the reading. It's important to trust yourself. Reading the course is reading based. It's very important that you do the readings, you take your time with them, and that you, focus on reading for that time. So there will be 3 intense weekend seminars, block seminars, beginning this Saturday on the first half of the question concerning technology, which will, broadly speaking, focus on what Heidegger means by Bestand, standing reserve or standing resource, depending on what the role of the human being is in it. And so I'll say this again, there's more people now here. If you have a question, ask a question in the chat regarding the course, and I'll respond to the question either at the end or straight away, depending, maybe if it makes sense now, I'll just respond to the question now. And on Sunday, we'll focus on Gestell, usually translated as Enframing, sometimes also known as positionality. Gestell really means something like the concentration, the gathering of all modes of positioning, placing. So stellen in German is quite rich a verb. You can find it in vorstellen, which means to represent, but also to imagine, but also to introduce and to portray, to project. So you have, let's say, projection, representation, imagination. That's Vorstellung, which then also, according to which, let's say, something is supposed to be hergestellt, produced. Sometimes in the mode of nachstellen, which means to imitate, to chase after, to copy, maybe even to stalk. So plenty of modes of stellen, bereitstellen, hinstellen, vorstellen, etc. All of those are the modes of Gestell. So that's the Sunday session. The second weekend, we're going to read 2 different texts. The first half of Heidegger's a dialogue on language with a Japanese and an interlocutor. The first half suffices for our interest. Of course, you're free to read on. because it's in the beginning that Heidegger addresses the Europeanization of the planet, which is what we are going to discuss as well, and how far technology originates from the Occident. And well, almost, unlike popular belief, Heidegger did not detest the West or the Occident or anything like that, but he wants to understand its unique trajectory and hence also its unique mandate in history. Heidegger points out that the world, or rather the planet, is being Europeanized in the moment that Europe forgets, or begins to forget, or maybe has already forgotten itself. So the result of this eerie process might be a complete uprooting. So we want to understand the operations of Gestell. That's then really the second weekend, the second day of the second weekend, the fourth seminar in total. We'll then focus on science and reflection. We want to understand what science is. Why is it that Heidegger said, Die Wissenschaft denkt nicht, science does not think? What does he mean by this? As he says, it is not criticism. There's nothing wrong with science. Points out that science cannot do so, but we want to understand what modern theory is. And we might even take this further and have a discussion on ideology. Heidegger doesn't go there, but one could certainly do that. So that's the fourth seminar, second weekend, which is the final weekend of October, where we're going to look at the relationship between theory and actuality, and also how to reclaim perhaps a different understanding of theoria. So we want to understand what science is according to Heidegger, how he sees it, and how science, natural science with its models, but also qualitative science with its models, sociology, for example, places or forces, for example, in the case of natural sciences, places, forces nature into a Procrustes bed of its models, and similar for the social sciences. And the final weekend, then we're going to focus on die Kehre, the turn. Well, Heidegger raises the question how, in the danger that is beginning to show itself, there can be some that which also saves can grow as well. And we want to understand what Heidegger means by a possible free relationship with being. So that's a broad overview of the seminars. There will be a final seminar probably 2 weeks after the 2nd of November, so probably mid-November, where we'll hold a symposium where you may present your own work. And I received, for example, a question from Pete, I think was his name, who asked me whether, so he's not expecting to make a presentation or have an understanding of Heidegger that others haven't already articulated better. Well, yeah, that's fine. We're not looking for the next Heidegger himself or anything. It's the seminars are really there for anyone interested in having discussions on the matter. If that's something that you think you could benefit from, then you should attend the seminars. If you can make at least, say, 3 out of the 6, then you should join the seminars. We record all seminars, so you'll be able to listen to what you miss out, or maybe you can only make 1 hour on one day, and maybe you miss out on another day. But we record every session, and that'll be made available for the group. And the idea is not that you say anything groundbreaking to wow the others, but to well to enter into a conversation as we are want to do um, at seminars, and it's more about learning how to speak publicly if you've never done it, or maybe not often, and also just thinking together with others. Marin Pielo says the question concerning technology is masterful. So this is Marin is referring to Heidegger's text is masterful, but how crucial it is to have someone who can relate the German idioms employed in considering Heidegger's spoken language his own. Yes. So, and as I said in an email today to everyone already enrolled, if let's say you're French or you're Spanish or you're from Holland or from Portugal or who knows where, from Sweden, etc., as George is in the audience, read it in Swedish, read it in French, read it in your mother tongue. In that respect, if you don't read German, that read it maybe in your mother tongue rather than the English translation. I'd be very keen to hear what some of the other translations have suggested for some of those words. The idea of translation is one of those prime examples of where you can basically see the operations of Gestell. If all a translation provides is a correct terms, or Ereignis means event, that's correct, perfect. So, but Ereignis doesn't mean event. Gestell doesn't mean enframing. Wesen does not mean essence. So we're not really addressing the essence of technology. We're addressing really the realm of techniques. And you will see why I suggest this translation, which doesn't always work. And yes, we lose then this notion of Wesen in German, but there is no, some have suggested abiding, the abiding of being, etc. But that's not what Heidegger addresses here in this essay. So you have to go context to context, and we have to take our time with these texts also. So as Pete asked in this email, maybe it's not necessary to contribute something that's groundbreaking, but you bring yourself to a point where you understand that this is not about gleaning information, regurgitating concepts, etc., but beginning to think in a certain way, or beginning to see that there are other possibilities of being as well. So, and that forms part of the turn. It is nothing inevitable in Heidegger. That's very crucial. There's also no antithesis in Heidegger's thinking. There's no antithetical stance. So if you see someone saying that Heidegger hated the West or hated metaphysics, you are dealing with someone who should be staying very far away from Heidegger or basically anything. The public. These are cheap. Scholars have done this as well, etc. So it would be. So Marin has already signed up, so that's great. And also, we do want to. We do want to. So we're going to take our time with just a few texts this time, and as we're doing this on weekends, I think it's going to make this a bit more intense, because let's say if we do Saturday, Sunday, you'll be more immersed in it as we are hiking through Gestell, as we are all want to do. So, and then Pete also asked Trevor whether it's already possible to enroll in the self-study tier, and yes. So that just maybe with that question, and if someone has any more questions, please could you just raise those in the chat. There's one that I'll get to in a second by Crimson Philosophy, which, okay, basically I can summarize those two questions. Yeah, so So Crimson Philosophy says that it seems as though Heidegger's ideas about enframing, which is Gestell, roughly speaking, enframing, the enframing of human beings as utility has come true via capitalism, and it's now a technocratic system. That's something that we should definitely discuss. I think that capitalism, socialism, etc. What's the difference? There's no difference. Those abstractions don't really lead very far, and because then what they turn into are discussions about where are we in capitalism? Is this late stage capitalism? Is this kind of ism at the moment, etc. And as you mentioned, technocracy. There are agents of Gestell, and this is certainly also worthy of discussing why. And there's something that I gave a talk recently, just about a month ago, in Bergamo in Italy, on the theological side that's often neglected. And Heidegger points out certain trajectories, tendencies in Christianity, let's just say Christianity, onto theological ones that and yeah. So, and then Crimson Philosophy asks, do you have a syllabus that we can look at? So what you can look at is the enrollment page, which, if I may point out, you find here. Oh, sorry. So just follow this link, perhaps do so now so we can go over this together, anyone who's listening. It's also linked in the description of this video. So this takes you to this, to the enrollment page. And I would recommend to take a look at that again, because it just gives you an overview of the entire course structure. So, what are we going to read? When? So, for example, here, seminars begin here. You find all seminar dates here. You find the times here, 6:00 p.m. Central European Time. What we're going to read, when. As soon as you sign up, you find even more details in there, because then the video lectures have been uploaded, and the you'll find the precise reading for every weekend date already listed, so you can get started right away. Don't forget, it's Tuesday now, and someone else asked me when I will close the enrollment for the seminars. There's no precise enrollment date really, except the obvious, which is probably Friday or Saturday. If, however, there are now about, I think, less than 10 places left in the seminars. So it's, and then I can't really change that if you're late. So if you want to partake in the seminars, Crimson Philosophy, for example, then it's a good idea to join us. So if there are more questions, please raise them. So again, this gives you an overview of what we're going to read and when. There is precise, description here. If you have an idea, if you want to read something else or bring something else up by Heidegger in the discussions, that's perfectly fine. You see the course curriculum here: lecture 1, lecture 2, metaphysics, turning for relation with techniques. Again, more overview. What's the idea of the course? And I want to stress that Heidegger is not a conservative reactionary. He does not detest technology. He does not think that, as he says himself, I don't think, I should actually maximize this here rather than myself. He does not think techniques or technology to be demonic. He does not regard it as evil. He does not, instead, the intensity of the dominion of techniques, by which he means nothing technological, might in fact rather lead to a new experience of being, of what he actually means by being. The question of being is always present here. And the law of aletheia, of concealment, unconcealment, Bergung, die als Verbergung und Entbergung auffächert. Concealment, unconcealment, sheltering, but also withdrawing, which is what he calls Ereignis, coming into one's own disappearing, withdrawing at once, at the same time. So there's no romantic notion here of, oh, let's just all read Hölderlin and the world will become whole again. None of this. There's no cop out like a belief in demonic forces or anything nonsensical like this demonic AI. Let's summon the spirits because we can't think. No, this is about thinking. It's not very funny that the so-called Cambridge Platonists were all believed in ghosts. I don't know why that is, but they have a tendency over there to do that. So we're not doing any of this. We're thinking rigidly through Gestell, and we want to be able to see it. I think what will happen to some of you is that you walk away from it and you begin to see that Bestand, Gestell are everywhere. They are the way in which beings are allowed to appear. That's what Gestell is. The difference between being and beings remains. Being Gestell, beings as Bestand. The way in which beings are, for the most part, allowed to appear is only, and that means that that's what they are, is Bestand. Standing ready for use immediately. And I'm just mentioning this because someone else asked whether, in an email, whether when I'll close the enrollment, as I said, for the seminars, if basically Friday, but if the places fill up before then it's before then. So there are 3 different, let's just say, so study tiers, or I'd rather refer to this as a study path that you can choose if you, let's say, really don't have any time for the seminars. Take the self-study tier and go through the text on your own first, then listen to the lectures, take notes as you do so. The same is true for everyone else, regardless of which tier you sign up for. So, for example, these are my notes. Can you see this? I don't know. I have to look at my camera again. These are my notes for this course. That's one specific notebook, only for this one. For my lectures, for those of you who are interested in taking this very seriously, which you should also get a specific dedicated notebook just for this course and take notes. And you can come back to those notes in 10 years or 20 years or 5 years or 5 weeks and go over them again and work through them again. And it's important also to have a relationship with your own handwriting. Yeah. Don't take notes on your phone. That's for monkeys. So if you don't have time for the seminars, really, only then I would recommend the reader, maybe, given that you maybe live in a time zone that it doesn't make sense for you. Australia, for example, I don't think, there might be some who's radical enough to join us on a Monday morning, and I'd be very happy to have you. But I understand that you couldn't make it. So that's for you then. Most do tend to take the philosophical fellowship, as we call it, with live Zoom seminars. Just mentions here again, was it before, there will be 6 seminars, 6 seminar sessions over 3 weekends, plus the symposium. So there's 7 seminars in total, plus all the lectures, etc. Everything's been uploaded. If you'd like to take additional private tutorials with, that will be me, of about 90 minutes each, then you should take the philosophical dialogue tier with Dr. Niederhauser. That would be me. There are also payment plans down here. Just choose whichever is best for you. So these private sessions, if you're working on something more substantial, let's say. So who's come to these sessions? I don't know, professors, lawyers, for some reason, people who work in tech. I understand why, to be fair. And playwrights, etc. So if there's anything more substantial you're working on, do you think you might benefit from some additional conversation on the matter? So it's based on the readings. Then, and of course, I'd be happy to read some of your stuff as well. With this one here too, you will be. I would welcome a submission by a week after the final seminar, and I'll get your essay, etc., back within a couple of days. So you have enough time to work on it for the final presentation for the symposium. This does not have to be a traditional academic essay or paper or talk or lecture, but could be a play, a poem, a song, whatever you come up with as you're hiking through Gestell, whatever it is that you see. Simon Großlercher. Das ist ein Tiroler Name, gell? Says, it's interesting how Heidegger initially develops or foreshadows the concept of Gestell as the mathematical in die Frage nach dem Ding. Ja. So those texts, 1 second. For example, das Ding. Yeah. I mean, what do you is part of the Bremer Freiträge, for example, where he develops this further, and then you have the Age of the World picture, perhaps as well. The mathematical has its place, but once Heidegger is at the Gestell in the question concerning technology, and further, that's when it's not purely mathematical and not purely quantitative. So you can't really be just reduced to that, I would say, but that's something we can discuss at the course as well. And something else I wanted to say, which is gone. But those texts. Oh yes, I remember now. When Heidegger gave those public talks, for example, the question concerning technology in Munich, or the Bremen talks, or the Freiburg talks, he had not yet published the Beiträge zur Philosophie, Contributions to Philosophy, and so to his listeners, it must have been nearly entirely impossible to make out what it is that he's trying to say, because he's already addressing the Ereignis and Seinsgeschichte, so-called history of being, without making that explicit. And now we are in a somewhat better situation to a certain extent, because we must, if you want to understand the question concerning technology, you have to come at it from the thinking of Ereignis, of Seinsgeschichte, of, let's just say tentatively for now, the history of being. And that is how we shall see it. We will understand it as Gestell, as the epoch of being, as the epoche, the self-reduction. So If there are more questions, let me know now, please. As I will be here another 15 minutes. And I'll just say this again. So if you have time for at least 3 seminars, sign up now. I think there's about 8 or 9 places left on the seminars. If they fill, then they're full. And that's it. And I might also just, because there's a couple of questions that we always get, which I might just, so I've responded to some of the questions that I've received via email. So one question we often get is, are there any prerequisites for the course? Basically, something I addressed before. And the prerequisite is to wonder, in the best sense, what this current epoch is. That's the prerequisite. If you want to know what is, to get insight into what is, then the course for you. That's the prerequisite. Babken, this is a technical question. Babken, hello Babken. Babken Sahakyan asks, will the seminar recordings be available in the self-study tier after the end of the course? Thank you. Well, thank you for the question. I think it usually depends on the participants. If the participants in the seminars are fine with it, then yes. If not, then no. Quite simply. If there are ein Innsbrucker, jawohl. Grüße an die In. Will we? Sometimes people ask, will we read any secondary literature? No. It's good enough to read Heidegger. Trust your own reading. There's a lot that's being written on Heidegger, and there are wonderful books. But the main point here is, because this is not university, we're not trying to sort of, not at all, to be honest, teach how to read secondary literature against so-called primary sources. But instead, the idea is that you learn, if you haven't done it yet, or maybe improve on just reading the text that matters, and read it in such a manner that you will be able to first of all, to read 30 pages, 40, 50 pages in a row, and see what's going on in the text. So it's not a critical review of whatever else has been written. That's not the point of the course. And of course, depending which quote unquote tier you're in, the access to the course is indefinite. So there's not a subscription. There's no time frame within which you have to complete the course. Even what you have indefinite / lifetime access to all course materials once you've signed up. Even if we, let's say, change a platform, then you would be you'd just be migrated over to the new platform. That's all. So and you wouldn't have to do anything. You just have to have maybe a new account with a different platform. So this platform is called Teachable, which has been quite good so far. I just maybe show you again what it looks like on the inside. So this is the first lecture. You can see here the video, the audio, the sound is turned off. Me again telling you to buy a notebook. And the audio file should be up there soon as well. I think that's taking some time to process, but it will be up in time, probably later tonight. And so this is what then you have access to here immediately as soon as you've signed up. And to those of you who are in the seminars, the seminar recordings show up in the same rubric as well. So the idea really is that it's readings based, so-called quote unquote primary sources, and the commentary, commentare, the thinking with is what the word means, comes from us, from you, either as just a reader who's going through the texts on your own, or from us as the group, which I will facilitate and teach. And now so what we're going to do on Saturday is focus on Bestand in the question concerning technology. So we want to understand what it is that Heidegger means, how he really arrives at even just the question concerning technology. So he says at the beginning, in the following, we ask for or after techniques. Technik. And then he says, das Fragen baut an einem Weg. Questioning or asking builds a path. That's why it is a good idea to consider or be mindful of, especially the path, and not to get stuck up on or get hung up on various sentences and titles. The path is a path of thinking. All thinking paths lead more or less perceivable to the ear or to the eye in an unusual way through language. So the third, fourth sentence of the first paragraph of this essay, Heidegger mentions language. And now you know why we have to turn to language in a course on the quote-unquote essence of technology. We ask after techniques or for techniques, and thereby we want to prepare a free relationship with it or to it, zu ihr. Free is that relationship when or if it opens, and now this is going to be radical for those of you who have never heard this, when it opens our being, our Dasein, our being really, to or for the essence of techniques. If we correspond to it, then we are capable to experience the technical in its limitation. For qua epoch of being, the currently predominant epoch, techniques is seemingly exclusive for technology, but is in fact not all powerful, and is itself a finite occurrence of being, a finite destining of being. And that we shall learn how to see. And Heidegger then goes on to say in a good phenomenological manner. And so what we're going to do is we're going to focus on a few of those paragraphs here that we're going to read together on Saturday. And we're going to look at how he appropriates causality handed down from Aristotelianism, etc. By the way, if you have more questions on the course, please raise them now. I'll be here another 5 minutes, perhaps at most. And Heidegger then, just goes through. Oh, we usually think of technology as instrumental, anthropological, but he shows, and hence he has to turn to causality. And from there on, all of a sudden, we are already in aletheia, in the moments of apophanistai, of unconcealing, disclosing. And Heidegger, this this reappropriation of causality in a more original manner, in terms of the Greek aition, that something owes its being to something other. So this interrelationality that's addressed here, that's something we really want to also look at. Because in some sense, of course, Bestand is that also, if you hadn't noticed. And of course, if you're interested, in let's say AI, digital surveillance, AGI, the belief that AI is God, where's this coming from? Yeah. All of these are things that we then, in the more experimental part of the seminars, also discuss. So if you do this of course, in the philosophical dialogue. So I'm very happy. I think there are 2 left for the 3rd tier. So this is this one here, down here, philosophical dialogue. So let me know if you have more questions. And then I can respond to regarding this course, which begins, I'll say this again, this Saturday. There are currently, this is now Tuesday as I'm doing this live, there are currently less than 10 places left on the seminars, which begin this Saturday, run for 3 weeks. There will be 6 seminars in total, always Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's now 4 years, almost 4 years ago, that I taught Heidegger on technology last. So if that's any benchmark, then it'll be 2030 by the time I teach Heidegger on technology again. And indeed, the last Heidegger course is also almost 3 years ago now, which was a course on being in time, which I may not be able to teach again for a long time. So unlike perhaps popular assumption, I don't teach Heidegger all the time. This is a rare occasion. So if you do want to read some Heidegger with me, then now is a good time. Kyle McHugh asks, are we supposed to find the readings on our own? Well, Kyle, if you just look on Teachable, you find links to the PDFs. And I'm sure that you're old enough to be able to find readings. Okay? Good. And yes, so readings, what you should do is you should actually buy the books. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea, to buy a book when you join a course that's based on reading. How about a book? So, but those of you who are capable of using Google should be able to find the readings for this course quite easily. Apart from that, I really recommend that anyone who joins this course that does anything with philosophy, buy the books. Get the physical copies and read them, yeah, and have them, and live with them, and take notes in them. And if you have the PDF, then print it off, file it, and work with the printout rather than just a digital PDF. That might be a good idea, I think, for everyone, again, who wants to learn how to read again and reconnect with reading, as perhaps some might say. All right, so I'm going to go over one last time the entire course. If there are more questions, let me know. We begin this Saturday. Less than 10 places left now, so do sign up. Now, if you want to join the seminars, the first seminar, block seminar, weekend seminar, 18th and 19th of October, 2nd, 25th, and 26th of October, and the third on the 1st and 2nd of November. And about 2 weeks after that, we'll hold the symposium, where those of you who are in the seminars or higher, which is the philosophical dialogue, you'll get to present your own talk, etc., whatever you'd like to present. And if there are enough of you who want it published, then you will get, we'll publish this here on the channel. So if you really have, let's say you've got time for about less than half of the seminars, take the first tier reader, which is ideal for self-study. There's no time limit. You don't have to go through this in any time frame. It's not limited to a year. It's not a subscription. You sign up once and you retain the access, etc. If you have time, I'd say for at least half of the seminars, do join the Philosophical Fellowship. If you want to take additional private tutorials with me, which I'd be happy to do if you are serious in a certain pursuit, if you're writing a substantial piece, etc., then please do take the third tier, the philosophical dialogue, which will allow us to meet 3 more times, about 90 minutes each. And you can also send me something you're working on, writing on, etc. Okay, so there's also payment plans. You can look at them for any of those tiers. So we explain them down here as well. That's again just all the usual things here on the enrollment page, which again I'd like to share with you here. So this is the enrollment page. And then on the inside, just to show this perhaps again, this is what the course looks like. So you see here, these are publicly available texts, so I just link to them. And I also mentioned where you find the German version in the Gesamtausgabe, volume 7. And in the German, you should read 7 to 20. In the English, you should read about 3 to 19. And so that's just the first lecture, second lecture. Mentioned here that lecture is quite long. It's 85 minutes, sorry, 1.5 hours almost, but still. So that's just the rest of the text then mentioned here. Yeah, so that's what it looks like on the inside. Sorry, I should have, again, minimized myself. I forgot. So thank you very much for listening. And I look forward to meeting you on Saturday if you do decide to join the seminars. If not, then you might want to sign up in the self-study for the self-study tier. And once you do so, of course, feel free to leave comments. So down here, you can always leave comments. You should be able to leave a comment and I'll respond to them. Not immediately, but in time. Okay. Thank you.